reminder that JD Vance and Marco Rubio are close friends.
All right, folks, buckle up. We're diving headfirst into the political circus, and today's main event features a classic Trumpian twist: the search for a 2028 successor. It's like The Apprentice White House edition, but with more jumbo crab and ribeye steaks. We're talking about JD Vance versus Marco Rubio, two conservative heavyweights vying for the affections of the MAGA faithful, and more importantly, Donald J. Trump himself. But here's the kicker: the initial buzz, the predictions, the early polling, it all went sideways fast. We're going to be breaking down the moments that led to what some are calling JD Vance's political humiliation, and how little Marco, yes, little Marco, suddenly became the darling of Trump's donor class. It's a wild ride, full of unexpected endorsements, questionable claims, and enough political drama to fuel a Netflix series. Let's get into it.
JD Vance swore in Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. Marco Rubio, now serving as the warlord of Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran, along with half of the roles inside of the federal government, has some fates turning for 2028. Very interesting thing just happened.
Whoa, hold on a minute. Warlord of Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran? I mean, I know political hyperbole is practically a love language in Washington, but that's a new level of fantasy football. Secretary of State, sure. Diplomatic muscle, absolutely. But warlord? Unless Marco Rubio has secretly been training inside of a private army of highly caffeinated Cuban exiles, I think that someone's been watching too many action movies for sure. It's funny how quickly the narrative shifts, isn't it? One minute you're a fresh face, a rising star, the next you're going to be crowned the supreme commander of rogue nations by a YouTube commentator. This kind of sensationalism, while entertaining, completely muddies the waters of serious political discussion. It turns policy into cosplay. And let's be real, the idea that any single American politician, regardless of their position, could unilaterally become the warlord of three sovereign, albeit problematic nations is just absurd. It's the kind of soundbite designed to generate clicks and outrage, not to inform. It's like saying your local city council member is the emperor of potholes. Technically they deal with them, but the title is a little bit much. But it does set the stage for the kind of over-the-top drama we're about to witness. Because when you start with warlord, where do you even go from there? Apparently to Mar-a-Lago, where the real political battles are fought over steak and applause. The stakes are high, and the rhetoric, as we've just heard, is already dialed up to 11. Let's see how this plays out for our supposed warlord and his buddy JD Vance.
According to reports, Donald Trump asked his biggest donors about who they want in 2028 as the presidential nominee. And this is something that Trump has toyed with here and there. Obviously, Trump has talked about what the ticket looks like and what it should be. And even JD Vance has sort of led on that Donald Trump asks him regularly if he's going to be running for president right here.
And talk about things. He mentioned it probably 6 months or so ago. And
How do you feel about that? And have you talked to the Secretary Rubio about it?
I've joked with the secretary about it. So the president first raised this with me probably 6 months or so ago,
right?
During just one of our private lunches that we try to get lunch every couple of weeks just to catch up on what's going on and talk about things. He mentioned it probably 6 months or so ago, and I mentioned to the secretary in jest, but it feels so premature because we're still so early.
It's such a political answer here, but this is JD Vance effectively saying Donald Trump is asking me to run with Marco Rubio for president. Now, Trump's been out like regularly and like with Marco Rubio, standing beside him and saying that this would be a dream ticket.
There could be plans for you to be able to run and potentially win a third term in 2028. Is that something you'd be willing to challenge the court to be?
Well, I haven't really thought about it. We have some very good people, as you know, but I have the best poll numbers I've ever had. I mean, I just solved 8 wars and a 9th is coming. I believe Russia, Ukraine will happen.
You said that for 2028, they're very good people.
Well, we have great people. Well, I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have JD, obviously. The vice president is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against us. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable. I really do.
So if Marco Rubio, who's standing there, who looks down at the floor when Trump mentions his name, you see here, if Marco Rubio runs with JD, it'll be unstoppable, says President Trump. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and check in on what Donald Trump just did with the biggest donors, because as you know, the donors really have a lot to say in these kind of scenarios. President Trump is deploying an unusual tactic to gauge who is most popular ahead of a race to be his successor in 2028, Vice President JD Vance or Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Trump asked a room of donors at his Mar-a-Lago estate for his thoughts on the top two lieutenants, one day after he launched the war in Iran.
Hold the phone. Did I just hear one day after he launched the war in Iran? Excuse me? Launched what war? In Iran? Last I checked, my news feed wasn't blowing up with headlines about a new major conflict in the Middle East, initiated by our president. This isn't some minor skirmish we're talking about. A war in Iran would be a global seismic event. This is precisely the kind of irresponsible, unverified claim that drives me bonkers, dude. It's not just hyperbole, it's bordering on misinformation. It's like saying your neighbor launched a manned mission to Mars after he bought a new telescope. There's a Grand Canyon-sized gap between rhetoric reality and here. And the way it's just casually dropped in, almost like an aside, while discussing donor meetings, is designed to slip past unchallenged, to plant a seed of doubt or outrage without any evidence. This is how narratives get twisted, folks. You throw out something explosive, and even if it is completely false, a percentage of people will remember it, internalize it, and repeat it. Let's be crystal clear. If Donald Trump had launched a war in Iran, every single major news outlet, both domestic and international, will be screaming about it from the rooftops. It will be impossible to miss. So unless I've been living under a very large, very soundproof rock, this claim is, as we shall say, a massive fabrication. We need to be vigilant against these kind of statements because they don't just mislead, they actively undermine our ability to have an informed public discourse. Let's stick to the facts, especially when it comes to talking about wars and our actual president.
And it was the first time Trump had quizzed his inner circle like this before. What do you think of JD Vance or Marco Rubio? President Trump asked during the speech, sources told the Wall Street Journal. Over jumbo crab and ribeye steaks, the attendees applauded loudly for Rubio. The people said the Secretary of State reportedly received noticeably louder applause than did Vance. Oh my.
Ouch. Louder applause for Rubio than Vance? That's gotta sting. It's like showing up to your own surprise birthday party, only to find out everyone's more excited about the guy who brought the cake. This is the political equivalent of getting picked last for dodgeball, but with millions of dollars in a potential presidency on the line. The speaker frames this as Vance's humiliation, and honestly, it's hard to argue with that. In the world of Trump, public perception, especially among the donor class, is everything. These aren't just political claps. These are signals. Signals that say, we like your policies, we like your persona, and we think you can win. For Vance, who has been openly discussed as a potential running mate, this is a pretty clear message that the big money isn't quite sold yet. It also highlights a fascinating dynamic within the Republican Party. While the base might love the firebrand, the donors often look for a perceived safer bet, someone who can appeal to a broader coalition or at least not rock the boat too much. Rubio, despite his past clashes with Trump, has proven to be a loyal, if sometimes quiet, soldier. Vance, on the other hand, is still finding his footing on the national stage. This moment reveals that even with Trump's blessing, the path to power isn't a straight line. It's fraught with internal politics, donor preferences, and the ever-present need to impress the big players. Vance might have the MAGA cred, but Rubio apparently has their applause meter working in his favor. And in politics, sometimes a round of applause speaks louder than any poll.
Vance 41, Rubio 54, both former senators, football fans, differing appeal, depending on where the country may be from, whether or not, you at the heart 2028 sweepstakes. Currently, Vance leads early polling to become the GOP's 2028 presidential nominee. Has this all changed, however? Well, allegedly it has. Look at this. Polling on the likelihood of who will be the Republican presidential nominee. Well, what's this? Skyrocketing result. It is Marco Rubio, who's up 14 points. And JD Vance, who has crashed down 12 points. Yo. So President Trump, obviously, things have changed. Marco Rubio's presidential odds hit a new all-time high. Republican donors signal they want him over JD Vance. Obviously, this is like way far out, and who even cares about talking about these kind of things? But, you know, the midterms are 8 months away, and what happens after the midterms? That's the presidential race. After the midterms, you'll immediately have people announcing they're running for president in 2028, and the 2028 race will begin. So it's not that far out. With a bit of luck, this is the next president. What do you think? Obviously, there's been some very interesting movement for Marco Rubio, who ran for president against Donald Trump. Kind of a savage race. He didn't even need to campaign. He just needs to keep doing his job, and it'll speak for itself. We'll see, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see. Most likeliest, JD and Marco. The strongest, JD and Ron DeSantis. Okay. People are saying, well, that he would be a good president if Marco Rubio, realizing he has to be the president of the United States. Okay, Trump asked 25 Republican donors whether they prefer JD or Marco. And the attendees overwhelmingly indicated that they wanted Marco Rubio. One of the people who kind of like shockingly announced that he would be in favor of Marco Rubio is Stephen A. Smith. Kind of wild. Stephen A. Smith, who's gone on a rampage against Democrats, announced on an interview with Sean Hannity that Marco Rubio is the only Republican that he would vote for.
3 people in your head right now that you'd vote for president.
Wait, Stephen A. Smith? The Stephen A. Smith? Who I thought was perpetually engaged in a fiery debate about LeBron's legacy or the latest NFL scandal, is now giving us his political endorsements? And not just any endorsement, but singling out Marco Rubio as the only Republican he voted for? My mind is officially blown. Wow. It's like finding out your favorite wrestling commentator is also a renowned Shakespearean actor. And it actually tells us something significant. Stephen A. is known for his no-holds-barred, often progressive commentary. For him to come out and back Rubio, even over other Democrats he might prefer, speaks volumes about Rubio's perceived appeal beyond the traditional Republican base. He called him an adult in the room and said there is no question in his qualifications. That's high praise from an unexpected corner. It suggests that Rubio, despite his conservative stances, might possess a certain gravitas or perceived competence that transcends partisan lines for some. In an era where political figures are often demonized by the opposition, Rubio seems to have maintained a level of respect, at least from certain surprising quarters. Now, does Stephen A. Smith's endorsement mean Rubio is suddenly a shoo-in for 2028? Probably not, but it certainly adds an intriguing layer to his candidacy. It shows that in the chaotic world of modern politics, sometimes the most impactful endorsements come from the least expected places. It's a reminder that voters, even those who lean left, can appreciate perceived competence and stability, regardless of party affiliation. Who knew Stephen A. Smith would be the one to give us that lesson?
You won't like it. You won't like it.
I don't care.
I'd vote for Westmore, Governor of Maryland. I'd vote for Josh Shapiro, Governor of Pennsylvania. I'd vote for Marco Rubio.
Okay. Talk about, what is it about Marco?
He's an adult in the room. There is no questioning his qualifications for the job.
If it's Marco and anyone other than Wes and Josh, you vote for Marco over the Democrat?
Yes.
Over Newsom?
Yes.
Over Kamala?
Yes. I'd vote for Marco Rubio over anybody that's out there right now other than Westmore or Josh Shapiro.
I mean, well, Iran war elevates Marco Rubio on Trump's 2028 succession jockeying. Donald Trump speaking recently about Marco Rubio in Cuba and how Marco Rubio would be a great warlord of Cuba and that he speaks the language. It's actually quite impressive. Marco Rubio fluent in Spanish, kind of, I guess, critical in our hemisphere if you wish to control the entire Western hemisphere, which we do. Donald Trump saying, yo, he speaks the language. It's going to make a lot of sense. I'm just going to put Marco over there. Win the Hispanic vote? I don't know, man. Here's Trump. He said this yesterday.
Cuba wants to make a deal.
Yes.
What would the United States get in return for that? And why should Americans trust Marco Rubio to negotiate it?
Well, Marco Rubio is doing a great job. I think he's going to go down as the greatest Secretary of State in history. Look at what we've done as a presidency. Look at what we've done as an administration. They trust Marco, and so do the American people trust. He's been successful no matter where he's been. He also speaks the language, which is always nice and always helpful. But he's dealing, and it may be a friendly takeover. It may not be a friendly takeover. It wouldn't matter because they're down to, as they say, fumes. They have no energy. They have no money. They're in deep trouble on a humanitarian basis. And we don't want to see that.
And there you have it, folks. From warlord to unexpected endorsements, the 2028 presidential race is already shaping up to be a wild ride, even before the 2024 dust has even settled. Marco Rubio, once little Marco, is now looking like a formidable contender, not just among Trump's donors, but even garnering praise from surprising figures like Stephen A. Smith. JD Vance, meanwhile, is learning that even with Trump's ear, the path to the top is paved with more than just MAGA loyalty. It's a stark reminder that in politics, things can change on a dime. The narrative shifts, the applause meters fluctuate, and unexpected alliances can easily form. What we've seen today is just the beginning of the jockeying for position. What do you think? Is Marco Rubio the future of the GOP, or will JD Vance find a way to reclaim the spotlight? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for unfiltered takes on national politics. Stay tuned because the story is far from over.